Leiker, joined by Ben Goessling and Andrew Krammer, all of us of the Minnesota Star-Tribune. We're out here. It's Friday afternoon at TCO Performance Center in Eagan. Vikings are wrapping up their week of practice ahead of their Sunday night home opener against the Falcons. We're going to kind of wrap up the week for you with what we know, and then we will answer some listener questions. We got some fun ones this week, so thank you for sending those in. Let's just start with Ben. It's Friday afternoon. We've talked about some injuries previously in the week. What did we see out there today looking at the guys at practice?
Yeah, Jeff Okudah in a no-contact jersey, which would indicate he's made it through at least part of the concussion protocol, and he's now able to go out and practice before he's able to handle any contact. But if he's feeling good and is cleared through the next step of it, possible still between now and Sunday, I would think that they would be trying to get him to the point where he could handle contact tomorrow and then get cleared for the game Sunday night. So they've still got a little time with him. We did not see Andrew Van Ginkel at practice, which I think we've thought he's going to be out all week, partially based on the fact that we find out about the concussion on Wednesday. So it has not looked like he's going to play. What we saw today wouldn't change any of those impressions of things. We saw Ryan Kelly practicing. Still did not see Josh Oliver.
No, we did see Josh Oliver.
We did see Josh Oliver. Couldn't remember if we saw him today or not. It's been a lot of moving parts with the injuries.
A lot of ins and outs.
A lot of what have yous. Yeah. New ish has come to light. The most important news of the week, probably, we don't have all of it, but J.J. McCarthy back at practice today, which presumably means we have a happy and healthy delivery. We don't have any details on that yet. Of a baby. Yes, if you haven't heard, check our website. I'm sure we've got a story on it. J.J. McCarthy's fiance was having a baby yesterday, which is why he was not here, but he was back at practice on Friday, getting ready to try to deliver a victory for the Vikings on Sunday night. See what I did there?
I did.
Thank you.
Delivered not just Postmates, but also a baby. I do think that's good news. We saw that Harrison Smith was out there as well. Christian Darrisaw was out there too. That would be 3 straight days for Darrisaw, which I don't think we've seen in some time because last week he had taken a day off in the middle of it. So this might be Darrisaw's return.
3 for Smith as well.
Yeah.
Which would be another good sign. I mean, one of those days is a walkthrough, of course, but that seems to both be trending in the right direction.
Yeah, and so and Ryan Kelly seems like he's going to be good to go dealing with that toe injury. So otherwise, it's just going to be Dallas Turner stepping into a pretty big role. I mean, we already talked about Cashman's being out. He was officially placed on IR this week after we had recorded the last podcast, so he'll be out 4 games. But with Van Ginkel being out, what are the expectations for Dallas Turner stepping into a pretty big role?
Well, I asked Brian Flores yesterday, what his confidence level was in Dallas to take on a starter's number of reps, because I think we talked about Wednesday, maybe it was just the 3 of us chatting, that he hasn't played more than 40% of the reps since he's been here.
Yeah.
And so that's a big overhaul to then go to 80, 90% of reps. But Brian Flores said he's 100% confident in that. He actually said that when he went back and looked at the stat sheet and the snap count from Monday night, that he had thought Dallas had been in more and was kind of kicking himself, being oh, Dallas should have been on the field more. So I think they're ready for him to take that on, and we'll see just how much some of the work we heard about from the offseason and training camp really shows up when he's playing that many snaps.
I mean, I do think it is going to be interesting to watch because we've typically seen him in a lot of pass rush situations, not exclusively, but I think if he's playing a starter's role, he's going to be in a lot more different settings, especially with a guy like Bijan Robinson on the field that Brian Flores talked about as a guy that can ruin games. I mean, a guy that can test you in a number of different facets. So how Dallas Turner handles some of those things, and we may see the Falcons try to target him a little bit, and we've seen that in the past with, I remember Anthony Barr and Todd Gurley back in L.A. in 2018 in that game at the L.A. Coliseum where they went after Anthony Barr a lot. So if they can try to get that matchup against Dallas Turner in coverage or, possibly even in some settings where he's in space, I'm curious to see if any of that will happen and if they'll try to go after him at all in those settings on Sunday night.
Or just them attacking the middle of the field in general, because it's not only, obviously, Van Ginkel who plays that drop spot. Cashman's gone, too. He's your best cover linebacker. So I think attacking the middle of the field, if you're the Falcons, has got to be the thing you're focused on.
Yeah, and they have people, whether it's Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London probably even, that can do that. So that is something I'm sure they're looking at pretty excitedly as they see the injury report come out of here.
What stood out to you guys about what we heard from Justin Jefferson yesterday? Coming off a Monday night performance where he still led in receptions, but that leading number was only 4 receptions in the game. He had a couple key drops, especially early. And I thought he was pretty introspective and had some real critique for himself about that performance.
Yeah, he was quite honest about it. I mean, he said, I need to be better with detail, which is kind of what we thought when we watched some of the film. The route depth on a couple of things was short of the sticks, and then on the interception, he basically said, I needed to take one more revolution of steps. In other words, when both feet hit the ground once. So 2 more steps would be the non-football guy way to put it if you're confused by that. He needed to take 2 more steps on his route. Yeah. That's why J.J. McCarthy's throw was on his inside shoulder when it needed to be outside, he said, because the timing was off on the throw, and that led to the interception. So he put the interception pretty much on himself and said, I need to be better in a lot of facets of my route running especially. And I think it was noteworthy. And a lot of the social media reaction was praising him for his leadership of saying, hey, this is on me. And he takes the responsibility pretty seriously. He calls himself the leader of the team quite a bit. And I think he sees that as not just, hey, look at me, I'm the star. It's, no, I have to play at a certain standard. And if there are mistakes, I need to own up to it. So he was quite willing to do that when we talked to him.
And since he came into the league, he's been kind of mature beyond his years in terms of handling things. But still, when he started his career, was it his first or second year, the famous throw the flag route or whatever it was, Kirk?
It was 2020 because the stadium was empty, which meant we heard it very loud and clear.
So his rookie year. But, I mean, that's just a moment of frustration for him. But he's been through lulls, and this was quite the lull in terms of production on Monday night. They just could not get a lot going. And so I was curious about how he would be patient and handle that. And it seems like he continues to be that kind of mature leader that is not going to rock the boat, not going to point fingers, not going to blame your young quarterback because you've got 44 yards.
We should note that Jefferson's first catch Sunday night will be his 500th career catch. He will tie Minneapolis-born receiver Larry Fitzgerald for the fastest or the youngest player to reach that mark. It's like 25 years and 90 days.
To the day.
It's
pretty incredible. They will have caught their 500th pass on the exact same age to the day.
Yeah. CeeDee Lamb reached that mark last week. He is also in the 25 year, but I think is at like 149 days. So
like
he's
50
a little
days
bit
later
older.
or something. Too bad. But yeah, Jefferson just keeps setting records, and we're going to talk every week, I feel like, about some bar he's hitting.
It is interesting, though, and not to be Debbie Downer on this, but a lot of these records we've seen him set for the first few years of his career. He is blowing past people to the point where he's not tying anybody. That it is, whether the injury in 2023 or, probably a little bit of, hey, everybody's covering me pretty, devoting a lot of coverage towards me and the ball is not coming my way as much. It does seem like there's a little bit, a very slight downtick in the pace of some of these things. That's going to happen. That's just part of what you go through when people are saying, hey, we have to take this guy out, take this guy out of the game in a way that they probably weren't doing right away until they figured out how dominant he was going to be. But I don't know. That's just interesting to me because we've heard him this fastest to do this, youngest to do this his entire career. And when you mention that, it's the first time I can think of like, oh, he's only tying somebody for this stuff. And some of those things have been broken, in the year or so after that, probably by Jamar Chase in a lot of cases. But I don't know. It's worth noting. I just think that's kind of interesting. And his career is going to go through different stages and different life cycles with different quarterbacks and the way coverages get rolled towards him. It's just things he has to adjust to and deal with over the course of his career.
Let's go ahead and get into some of our listener questions that we had for the week. We'll start with this one from Big Bad Rags on Blue Sky. Is Adam Thielen's usage going to increase, or do you think he's going to basically settle in as third receiver and a short and red zone threat, or a third down short and red zone threat, especially with Addison when he returns in a couple weeks now?
I mean, I think it's probably a lot of short yard, kind of the shallow route on a lot of things, and then probably red zone. I think it's more that than not. Injuries could change some of those things. But, yeah, when Jordan Addison comes back, I think it's a lot of that. I also thought Jalen Naylor played a big enough role on Monday night that he's going to be part of this too. And we'll see if they start to spread things out and go more 4 receiver sets or have different packages for different people. But, yeah, I wouldn't expect it's going to get markedly bigger. We'll see. But I would expect, if anything, it's going to stay kind of where it is or maybe get even a little smaller.
Yeah, I was shocked to see how much Naylor played. Kevin O'Connell commended Naylor for recovering from what Naylor had said was a fractured hand that he dealt with last month. And for him to come back, not have to catch for a couple weeks, and then be playing 80, I think it was like 85% of the snaps, whereas Thielen only played 55% in his first game back. I expect that to be kind of similar moving forward, because Naylor was ramping up to that role to replace Addison all training camp before he went down.
Right.
And for him to bounce back as quickly as he did, and for the coaches to like what they saw from Jalen, would indicate to me that Adam is going to be kind of in that number 3 role. And then when Addison comes back, I'll be fascinated to see how they split up those number 3 reps, considering that both of those guys can play that spot.
Yeah.
Our next one from Cuberino, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, from, I don't remember if this was X or Blue Sky, but no matter. With Cashman out for a bit, do you think Kobe King and or Austin Keys is in line for more work, and in what capacity?
I mean, I wouldn't think so, Ben, right?
No.
Considering how Brian Flores and rookies don't mesh too much.
Not so much. I would expect it's more Eric Wilson than either of those guys. And maybe we see that change if Kobe King, probably especially, takes on a little bit bigger role. But I would think it's mostly special teams for those two, and probably more veterans. I mean, when we didn't see Dallas Turner very much as a rookie, it's probably reasonable to assume that guys that are either 6th-round draft picks or undrafted free agents are not going to be on a faster timetable than the first-round pick they traded up to get.
Yeah, and I do think, too, when it comes to Kobe King and Eric Wilson and just that split, Wilson has 9 years in the league. He's got all that experience. Flores loves that you can trust him in a variety of situations. It's not going to be too big for him, all that stuff. And he stepped in and handled, as we talked about, the mic communication stuff, relaying the play calls.
The green dot.
If he can step into that role so seamless, as Flores used that word, seamless, it's not going to be anybody else.
Well, and we've also talked about how last year when they were missing Pace and then Cashman, like they also put Metellus down in that role more. Like they have flexibility beyond just the linebacker room to avoid having to put younger players on the field unless they really feel like there's some advantage they can get there or something they can be advantageous on.
That's a good point. I wonder if, regardless of Harrison Smith's availability, if we see Josh drop a lot.
I would expect we'll see more of that. I mean, I think if you need a quasi-linebacker, he's shown in the past he can do that. They trust him to do that. I would think and he's also a big part of that communication chain when they're trying to make a lot of checks. So I would think you probably lean on a guy like him more than somebody that's new to it.
Yeah, and as you were talking about with Bijan, whoever it is going to be in for a pretty long day. Because, Bijan's pretty good.
Yes,
what other questions we got?
Let's see here. From N Medias Res on Blue Sky, Caleb Williams' elusiveness was unreal. I expect more pressures to be converted into sacks versus Atlanta. How many sacks can be expected Sunday?
Well, I would think probably, I would say 3 or 4. I mean, the other thing that they have going for them is they're at home.
Yeah.
And that crowd, I expect, is going to be pretty charged up by Sunday night with, first game for J.J. McCarthy, Adam Thielen back, home opener, Sunday Night Football. There's going to be a lot of people that will help kind of come to their cause, so to speak, where maybe those offensive linemen for the Falcons are a half step slower off the ball, and sometimes that can make a difference, especially with a guy like Dallas Turner, with the get-off that he has, Jonathan Grenard. We see some of those things. You don't have Van Ginkel, which doesn't help, and Blake Cashman being out doesn't help, but I think 3 or 4 sacks is probably reasonable.
You were covering for me as I was looking for, not covering, you were doing a great job breaking it down, but happened to be covering for me also when I was looking up the stats from last week. The Bucs sacked Penix just once, even though he dropped back almost 50 times in that game.
I saw you looking up something. I was like, okay, I tap dance. It's like a sight adjust here. This is a check with me.
Check with me, But they couldn't sack him.
Yeah.
And Penix was also notoriously tough to sack in college. He does not take a ton. He gets the ball out. He's very smart. Part of what Kevin O'Connell praised about Penix was his ability to throw the ball downfield while also making smart decisions and not taking sacks. So you're right. It's at home. They have all the advantages of the crowd, making it tough on Penix. But this coordinator, Zach Robinson?
Zach Robinson.
Atlanta knows Kevin O'Connell. They work together in Los Angeles. He's going to put up a good plan together to get that ball out quickly and force the Vikings to rally and tackle. I think it's going to be tough to get him down, but I would imagine, what did they sack Caleb twice, right?
Yeah.
Both times Javon Hargrave.
I would take the over on that. I'd bet on 3 sacks at least for Penix, but I do think it's going to be difficult. Difficult in a much different way than Caleb was difficult.
It's like a decade of doing podcasts together. That's chemistry you can't buy, kids. A lot of reps, a lot of timing.
A lot of reps.
And I'll add the stat that Brian Flores talked about how quickly Michael Penix gets the ball out of his hands when he's back there getting ready to throw. He had the 7th fastest time to throw in the league last week, and like most of the guys ahead of him were veteran starters like Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers, like guys who have been in the league. Like he is very elite at getting the ball out of his hands, though they did note he's trying to use his feet a little bit more and maybe opening into that. So if he's feeling like he wants to try that more this week, that might be where those opportunities come.
The good thing is, though, whether it's Grenard or it won't be Cashman, but whoever's chasing him, it'll be easier to catch than it was last week.
Yeah, I don't know that you'll have pulled hamstrings trying to chase him down the way that they had it with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, well, it's also going to be like 80 degrees when they're playing, so and they'll be inside, I guess. But
Climate control.
From Slacker Inc. on Blue Sky, I fully agree with you guys. There should be no reason to boo Kirk Cousins on Sunday. We talked about this on the Wednesday episode a bit. My question is, why did fans boo him last year? That's awfully churlish of the fans. I am disappointed in them. It's not like the Vikings tried hard to get him back and he spurned them. What is Kirk Cousins' crime?
What's the crime? What is the crime?
Good use of the word churlish, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, as we know, as you especially know, I am a fan of the 10-cent word.
Oh, yeah.
So I appreciate that one. Nicely done.
Why do you think, because I remember a smattering of boos last year. I don't remember it being like vicious. I don't remember it requiring condemnation from Mr. Slacker. But what do you remember about that, Ben, and why do you think fans took it that way?
Yeah, there was, I think when he first came out, there was a pretty loud round of boos. I suppose it's just disappointment for 6 years where you win one playoff game and spent a lot of money and a lot of time. I'm sure there's people that don't like him for other reasons. You know, it's probably a split on those things, but
He was polarizing.
he was polarizing, yes. The 2021 season, as we covered and chronicled all of those things relative to vaccine decisions.
If I die, I die.
Yes, that got a bit
He said that.
a bit contentious.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Oh gosh, this is a conversation for later. But
Go off
yes,
the rails.
there's a whole. It was a whole thing. I think probably a lot of it is just it's a lot of money. A guy that they spent 6 years with, that you probably make some decisions with a roster that you have to cater to what they're paying him and work around it, and they just didn't get a lot for it. So I think it was probably a lot of those things. I don't know. I haven't heard Kirk's name much at all this week. It almost seems like he's kind of an afterthought. I don't think he's going to get booed on Sunday because they won't have many opportunities to do it. Like we talked about the other day, maybe they put him on the Jumbotron and he gets booed there, but you're going to have to create opportunities to boo him, and they're not going to come naturally.
That's a great point, though. Have you heard anybody bring his name up to anyone throughout any media session this week?
No.
I didn't even think about it till now. There's no reason to even really ask.
There's no reason for me to fly to Atlanta.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is so much different a year later after Darnold and what he did with McCarthy now. It just struck me when you said that. No one's even asked.
Well, the other piece of it, of course, is he's not the starter for Atlanta anymore. This is a two-stage thing of moving on from Kirk Cousins. The Vikings, of course, did it first, but then the Falcons did it a couple of weeks after Kirk was here, I think is when he lost that job. Yep. They had like a really low-scoring game in Las Vegas that cost him the job, which sometimes those things do. Shout out 3-0 Vikings game in 2023. There's just not a lot of reason to talk about him, think about him when he's probably not going to play unless Penix gets hurt or he's really bad enough to bench him, which I don't think is going to happen. So he's kind of an afterthought in a lot of ways at this point.
That's the Kirk convo for the week. From Ed H., good or bad, what's surprising so far with this Vikings team? Is anything surprising us
Miles
after
Price.
Miles Price.
That's a good one.
And Miles Price, for me, the fact that the punt returner job, at least in one night, seemed to just go from what are they doing? Let's see if this works to, oh, they got something. He produced the best game in punt return yardage for the Vikings since 2023. He had the single best punt return for the Vikings since then. I thought he was pretty impressive.
He had a lot of important ones. I mean, the one he catches at the 6-yard line takes it out to the 23. I mean, Kevin O'Connell talked about it afterwards, but hidden yardage that comes from those things. We have not seen a good punt returner here since Marcus Sherrills.
Yeah.
And he came up in a spot where it's a close game. They needed those yards. Yeah, that's definitely a good one. As far as surprises go otherwise, Aaron Jones as a downfield threat, we saw it in training camp, but I wrote about this in the newsletter today. The pass they completed to Jones was the longest they've completed to a running back via just looking purely at air yards. How far did the ball travel in the air before it was caught? The longest completion they've had to a running back since 2016, and that was Cordero Patterson, who technically was not a running back, probably was lined up as one at the time. But the completion for the touchdown to Jones was the longest one they've had since then. And, of course, they had the 42-yarder on the pass interference. They had a couple of these last year where they split them out wide and hit a couple of downfield throws. But I think we're going to see more of that. We saw it in training camp. The play that they ran for the touchdown was one we saw a lot in training camp. So the fact that, no, they were actually serious about that, and they're going to do more of that, I think is noteworthy. And it's a bit of a surprise only in the sense of the guy's 30 years old and kind of reinventing himself a little bit. But you don't see running backs do a lot at age 30.
No, and that's a great point for how, because you've talked about and written about Mason, how much he's come on. He's kind of played Aaron out of some early down work, and then they've used that to get Aaron back on the field and get him to do some stuff. Because he's always been a good receiver, but
yes.
There wasn't on that
a lot of swing passes and screens over the years. Not that.
Yeah, not that. And it wasn't on that touchdown. He put a little double move on it.
Yes.
He kind of like stuttered a little bit.
It's like a stutter go kind of thing.
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, well, he froze the linebacker on it and beat him. The throw actually probably was a little bit behind him, but he still had enough time to catch it and go in for the touchdown. But, yeah, it was his ability to track the ball over his shoulder. We've seen some of that, and I think Wes Phillips praised that this week too. So, he's shown he can do it, and they're going to use him in that facet of the game probably more than we've seen most of his career.
Not a surprise about the team, but maybe one of the most surprising things we heard this week was special teams coordinator Matt Daniels revealing that Ty Chandler had suffered his knee injury after the opening kickoff of the game. Didn't tell anyone until the second quarter, and then they continued to play him through the end of the game when he made that big kick return to kind of seal things. Now he's on IR for 4 weeks.
Yeah, Daniels is like, Ty comes to him. He said at the end of the second quarter, as you said, he comes to him and Daniels goes, "Did you tell anybody?" And Ty's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, you got to tell somebody. Like, go to the medical staff." And clearly he was good enough to at least play through it. But it must have swelled up. Something must have happened to where it's a 4-week injury at least. Yeah,
and that's always the line that players walk is they encourage players to be fully transparent, give as much information as you can about your injuries, but players in the back of their mind are saying, I want to be on the field. If they take me off because they're concerned about my health, somebody else can come in and take my job. So that's always the thing, especially for a guy like Ty Chandler that we thought may have a chance to be bounced off the roster. So it does become, I think, that thought process for players quite a bit. But, interesting nonetheless that it happened as early as it did in the game, plays through it, and then it was bad enough to put him on injured reserve, but not bad enough for that he couldn't tough his way through it on Monday night.
Yeah, we saw Tim Jones returning some kickoffs in practice, and then Matt Daniels had mentioned a few other options, Xavier Scott, Isaiah Rodgers, and who was the other one? There was one more I'm missing.
Ty
Felton.
Oh, Ty Felton, thank you.
Yeah.
The rookie receiver. So all those guys got work in the preseason, but Tim Jones would be a new one if he was out there.
Well, and Xavier Scott was kind of like the preseason darling a little bit, or one of the preseason darlings, and had just gotten into that kick return role, really taking that on in that game he was injured in, which was the one against the Titans. And we had the conversation of if Xavier Scott hadn't been injured in that game, would Ty Chandler have been bounced, or did that happening keep Ty Chandler around a little bit longer?
Yeah, and this might be over-explaining it to fans who already know, but they'll have two returners back there, obviously. Miles Price being the other one in the primary kick returner. Ty was the backup. And Daniels had mentioned that the Bears were angling it away from Price, which, again, insane. Dude's first game, and they're kicking away from the guy.
They learned quick.
That's insane. But, so whoever's this spot we're talking about will be that second returner.
Yeah, you need two now with the dynamic kickoff. You typically have two back there, which is different than what we've seen for most of our lives watching football.
I think we'll call that it for today's mailbag episode. We will be back with a post-game episode on Sunday night following that game against the Falcons.
Probably actually be like Monday morning.
Yeah. It'll probably be after midnight, so it'll be Monday morning.
But the lights will stay on.
The lights will stay on. We'll get it up early. You'll wake up at whatever time you wake up for work on Monday, and it'll be there for you. Keep tabs on the Strib Sports Instagram, StarTribune.com, and then the YouTube channel Sunday night for the next episode of the
This one's for the Tims.
Podcast.
to get through one of these without laughing.
We won't.